Hi guys, this is Allison from Allykatkreations. How are you? Please hit that like, share, and subscribe button if you haven't done so already. And if you get anything from my work, a mind-blown moment, a connect the dot, an epiphany, a new book to read, a new author to explore, please consider supporting my work. All the information for that is in the description box below the video. With a heavy heart and the last 2 days being insane, co-host number 2, Ethan, had passed away. I had to put him to sleep yesterday at 4:15 in the afternoon. Just Thursday night, I finished doing a podcast and I noticed his eyes were dilated, like bad. So I rushed him into the cat room. He's doing what a blind person would do. I had a cat before him, did the same thing, went blind. So I was going to take him to the vet in the morning to figure out if he has issues with it. He had issues with his eyes before this. So if something burst or something happened, I don't know. But then as the night progressed, things just kept getting worse. He started having seizures, shaking spells, couldn't walk right. So I looked for a 24-hour hospital that had a neurologist. Nothing that is anywhere near close to being here, 3 hours away, and I was exhausted. So I kind of knew right there and then things were not looking good. Bring him into the vet the next day. He's still alive. And by the end of everything, basically the narrowing down that he probably had a stroke or also had a brain tumor. I think it was both. He was miserable. Being that I have abilities, I asked him, he sent me signs. I got this huge poem on Facebook out of nowhere. It was perfect. It was his way of saying, please let me go home. I'm done. I can't do the shaking and twitching and it hurts and no way. So I had to make a very rough choice and I know I made the right one. Sucks because it was all of a sudden. Didn't have any signs that he had a brain tumor. He was walking fine, eating fine. You know, he had no night vision in his eyes, but he's had that since he was a kitten. So that's what I've been dealing with the last 2 days. Kind of sucks. I miss him already, but he's with my parents. He's with his other brother. He's in the light flying with the angels, and energy just transforms. So he'll be around. Oahspe, finally. I know we're not close to being done. I'm going to try to knock out the next couple of chapters. Again, for those of you who are new to my channel and haven't watched since the beginning, I cannot pronounce half of the names I'm starting to see that I already have to read. I'm not here to disrespect anybody. I'm also dyslexic, so please keep in mind that there are things I might misread or mispronounce. I also have bad teeth, so I don't project my words properly all the time. So just be mindful, because, you know, it is what it is, and I can't really do much about it with all these other circumstances popping up in my life. We ended off on chapter 35, and we're going to pick up on chapter 36. Never in these heavens had there been such pageantry and display as when Fragapatti's Avanza entered Shanghai. Never so many musicians, 2 million distributed to lend so great an effect to a procession. Of this matter, Ahoan said, by the pageantry and the music were my hosts of delivered Drudras, made to realize that the glory of the upper heavens by the glory of those 3 days, recreation, did I shut out the attractions of the lower world. My people were entranced with delight. They were born for the first time in the kingdom of heaven. Ahoan said, by the greatest glory of all was when Fragapatti honored the throne of Shanghai. Jehovah cast a sun upon the place, and the voice spake from the light, so that all the multitude saw the light and heard the words of the Father. And when Fragapatti rose up and stood in the midst of the throne, the light was so great that millions of people fell down because of its glory. The lights were lowered to suit the newly born in heaven, and the people of Etheria mingled with the atmospherians, diverting, explaining, and inspiring them with the multitude and glory of their higher heavens. After the recreation, and when the multitude were in order, Fragapatti spake from Jehovah's throne, first to Aspasia, assistant goddess to Ahoan, who was to succeed him after dawn. To her he said, Aspasia, daughter of Jehovah, hear thou my words. I am one with the Father, and his name salute thee. Behold, from this time forth the Father's word shall dwell with mortals. It shall become anchor to the earth, never depart. Though it may be mutilated and perverted, yet his hand is over it, and it shall not fail. As a mother delighteth in the first spoken words of her child, so shall we take delight that the Father's word hath come in graft on earth. Before this time, the word was with the Ahin tribe, but locked up in secret. It could not be maintained on the earth by locking it up in secret with a people prepared as seed for delivering all the races of men. But now the word is delivered openly in mortals. If the spirits of the lower heavens know not the Father's word, they can be hereafter taken down to the earth and there taught his commandments. Prior to his time, the angels of these lower heavens had no word at anchorage. They consistently fell in darkness and pulled mortals down with them. Behold, the world is now engraved through our sons, Samadhi and Zarathustra. It cannot be lost. Though thou hast been exalted first goddess of these heavens and lordess of this division of earth, to maintain light of this dawn, to angels and mortals, thou shalt first of all labor to protect the world to mortals. To all priests and cities of Zarathustra, thou shalt appoint the wisest of thy angels' host to protect them and maintain the world. But to such mortals as deny the world, and to such as to seek to destroy the world, thou shalt lend no assistance, but leave them either without angels or with only such as will lead them into failure. Maintain thou thy hosts in the temples of worship, where they worship the Great Spirit. Throughout Jaith, thou shalt inspire mortals to hang the wheel of their altar in country places, by the roadsides, and when mortals pass the places, they shall turn the wheel in remembrance of the Creator. For which reason thou shalt station at each and every one of these altars angel sentinels, who shall have messengers to thy throne. And when a mortal passeth the wheel and turn it, and is afflicted with sickness, thou shalt send angels to him to heal him. But if he turn not the wheel in remembrance of the Father, and yet be afflicted with sickness, thy sentinel shall not send to thee, nor shalt thou send angels to heal him. Nevertheless, the wheel and the altar shall cause men to think, and if after disbeliever hath passed the wheel and not turned it, he will be afflicted with sickness. And he repent and go back and turn the wheel. Then shalt thou send him in haste and heal him, that he may proclaim abroad what the Creator hath done for him. For as much as thou carriest out these decrees of all light, so shall thou remain united with my heavens above, which are united with those above, which are united with the Creator. And therein thou shalt lack in power of wisdom. Ask the Father, and I will answer thee in his name. Fragapatti then spake to the council, which was after the manner of his words in Astaroth. After that, he walked down to the foot of the throne, where the marshals had provided a place for the people to pass before him, even as they had done in Astaroth. Accordingly, when the musicians began singing and playing, the people marched before him, and by waving of his hands, he created drapery and flowers and wreaths, and gave to all the people something, even there passing before him 2 million angels. Chapter 36. Thought I saw something right. So Fragapatti departed and sailed for High Ram, the heavenly kingdom of Echad, the Lord God of Arabia and its heavens. Echad had also the voice of Jehovah with him, and could not err. After his appointment to this division of earth and heaven, Jehovah commanded him, even as he had Ahoan, to make an Optivan, and visit all the places and make a record before he established his kingdom. And these things Echad did, taking 30,000 companions with him, being surveyors, inspectors, recorders, and numerators, and of such order are required in preliminary examinations of the earth and lower heavens. Besides these, he had also his host of musicians, his heralds and messengers. 40 days he spent in this labor, and then the record was completed, of which Echad had 2 copies made, one for his own kingdom in Etheria and one for the heaven he was about to find. Of these records, which are everlasting in heaven, the numerators estimated 1,800,000 spirits wandering about, mostly on earth, many of them falling into forgetfulness and dissolution, and many of them had forgotten who they were, and had no remembrance of once having lived mortal lives. Millions and millions of them had forgotten their speech and were dumb. Millions of them lived with mortals as fetals and familiars, depending upon the spiritual part of the food mortals drank and ate for their existence. And yet another millions of them pursued evil for evil's sake. Sounds like our world we're living in right now. Inspiring mortals to war for the delight of seeing them destroy one another, and of persuading mortals to suicide in all matters of wickedness. Sounds like what we are all facing right now, wouldn't you say? In the region of Gavis, there were 4 hells. 4. Which were 60 million souls in torments, tormenting one another in perpetual horrors, especially males and females doing what is even unlawful to mention. And these tormentors would bring Essenes fresh from the earth life and cast them into their hells for these wicked purposes. For even as mortals delighted in vengeance, so can the talent grow until it feast lieth in the fruit of hell. Neither desire such spirits to have even their own torments lessen, nor could they of themselves escape what they to try. Echad would fain have rushed in and delivered these hells, but Jehovah said unto him, Go thou first and establish High Ram with suitable habitations, and then return and deliver these hells, and thou shalt have places for them. So Echad established High Ram and appointed the holy council of 100,000 men and women. Sak-ak he made chief marshal, and he appointed Jethia his assistant god. Jehovah said to him, 60 lords shall thou appoint to thy division of earth, and they shall dwell in the principal cities of Arabia, and have dominion over mortals, and each and every lord shall have 10,000 ashars to do their commands. These then are the lords appointed by the Lord God for Arabia, to wit, first to have dominion over the reveal word. We're going to try here. Tesdagska, Basharab, Nathan, That one. Nashu, Dath, Shephet, Gayanya, Chaya, and Zeker. Second, the Lewis in general, but for special masters of generations. Achusa, Chata, Gala, Diane, Afisi, Isha, Basar, and Go. Third, for destroying evil cities and for protecting good ones and for building new ones. Etzel, Sherngath, Matsheba, Achim, Amos, Aho, Yakgab, Zur. How? I'm sorry. This is great. How the witch? How the witch? How the witch? I got a funny out of that one. Sorry, guys. Bodhi, Mackle, Yabaeth, Amma, Fakir, Thacker, Sifetz, Bachri, and Hivai. Fourth, to abide on earth with rabbis, priests, and shield them in danger. Maccabee, Emil, Ashif, Ashaf, Alk Mosum, Lai Awuch, Trabiab, Heveriv. See, this is a lot. I mean, if I were to spell these things out, you would be like, what the? Belgib, Baratia, Shava, Tir, and Badwatal. Fifth, to inspire to inventions. Karjaromimi, Moses, Beged, Shavast, Migad, Jari, Hindu, Suri, Amoths, and Ben Guda. Six, to have control over altars and temples, Atman, Crete, and Anak. In addition to these, the Lord God appointed censors of Hiram and her colonies in heaven, and the Ashars appointed over mortals as guardians were directed which colony to take their Assyrians, where were stationed the assists the receivers. As soon as Echad had these matters completed, he descended into the four hells with his Atvan, taking with him 3 million angels to help him deliver them. And when he arrived at the place, behold, the power and light of Jehovah was upon him, and he surrounded the four hells with his host of angels. Fire of thy fire, O Jehovah, he cried. Give me here walls of fire to enclose these suffering hells. And in the line of his hosts, there fell from the firmament above sheets of fire, and he walled the places around in such brilliant flames and suffocating flames that not one of the inhabitants of hell could escape. And Echad had and his hosts fell upon them right and left, building fires and pillars of walls, blinding to the Judras, so they fell flat down and hid their faces. And they marched through and through the four hells until all the inhabitants were fallen prostrate before them, crying out. And they were all naked, men and women, and only the recent victims were ashamed. Echad said, fall to now and deliver those who are ashamed, making a place beyond the walls of fire, but wall ye the place around also, and then clothe and feed them. So Echad's host delivered those who were ashamed. Again, Echad called out, begin now in sections and deliver the others into prisons, surrounded by fire, suffocating so they cannot escape. And let not the light cease to fall upon them that would not be clothed. Better is it that they lie prostrate than to display themselves nakedly. But as fast as they will accept and wear clothes and cease cursing, deliver ye them into the genial lights. For 6 days and 6 nights, each had labored in delivering the 4 hells, and on the 7th day they were all delivered. And there were amongst these Rudras 3.5 million in chaos, spirits who had lost their minds by the torments that other spirits had bestowed upon them. These each had placed in his Atman and sent to Hiram to be treated by the physicians. But each had many of his hosts remain with the groups of the delivered, further preparing them for resurrection. And now each had them inspected, and he further searched the Oahspe of the earth to establish the origin of these hells and as to who they were. This then is the substance of the history of the matter, to wit. In the lower country of Arabia on the earth, there had been a tribe of Ihuns of hundreds of years who had obtained 30 cities, chief of which was Asnu, which was the capital over all the rest. Asnu was ruled over by Chi-Mutz, a king of great wisdom and power in his youth, but after subjugating all the large cities of Arabia, he became a tyrant and a man of wickedness. Being learned in the earth, in moon and stars, he drew to his palace other men and not a few women of great learning, and together they resolved upon obtaining the Ihins, the sacred people, the secrets of their miracles and religion. Up to this time, all the people in the world respected the Ihins, neither denied them in anything, for they were the forefathers and foremothers of Ihuns. Chi-Mutz, the tyrant, said, because from our youth we have been taught to reverse the Ihins, we have become superstitious regarding them. Now it is evident that they have some other means than consulting the stars of prophecy. It is my command, therefore, that the different cities of Ihins be seized and the people put to death, offering sicker only to such a revealed their secrets. With their gifts and miracles and power of prophecy, I can march successfully against Parisi, Jaeth, and Hashem, and I shall become king of the world, and ye that help me in this matter, instead of having merely cities to rule over as now, shall have kingdoms with many cities. The learned men acceded to this, and shortly after the king's people fell upon the Ihins, pulled down their flimsy walls, putting them to fight or slay them outright, offering no salvation, save they would reveal their secrets and give themselves to the marriage with the Ihuns. Habak, a chief rabbi of the Ihins, went to see the king and expostulate. He said unto Chi-Mutz, behold, my people are older than this country. Our wisdom cometh not as other men's, but through marriage. How can we reveal? We are born veiled. No other people are thus born. How canst thou obtain the secrets of the womb? Besides this, we are sworn before our birth by our fathers and mothers to secrecy in our religion. Thou dearest us to intermarry with the people. I foresee this aims. Thou hopest for the gift of prophecy, which I, given to evil men, would give them all the power. But know thou, O king, he that desires prophecy for such purpose can never obtain it. Prophecy cometh by the other road. If my people intermarry with thine, it is simply the loss of mine. If thou hadst our passwords and our signs, they would avail thee nothing. Being born as thou art, according to our number, we pay thee thy just tribute. I pray thee then to change thy decree and suffer my people to remain as they have thousands of years. Chi-Mutz and the king said, why call ye yourselves Ihins? Habak said, because we are faithless in one great spirit. The king asked, what is the secret name of the great spirit? Habak said, I can only repeat the name under certain rules, otherwise I can lose my power of prophecy. Besides, if thou knew the name, it would be worthless to utter it. To whomever so uttereth his name, not in faith, it is void. Whoever uttereth his name for earthly gain or earthly glory, uttereth it in vain also. Of what value then would the name be to thee, even if I violated my own oath and revealed it to thee? The king mocked him and had him seized and taken to the lion's den, of which all the kings and rich people in those days had one or more, as a place for casting their disobedient servants. And when Habakkuk was at the lion's den, the king again offered to save him if he would reveal even the name of the Great Spirit, hoping that by its utterance he could also heal the sick, restore the blind and deaf, and especially prophecy. Habakkuk said, though thou mayest cast me in, and I be devoured, suffer me beforehand to prophesy concerning thee and thy kingdom. Yea, I will even prophesy concerning myself. Hear thou then my words. Thou hast sought to destroy my people who are compared to thine, only as one little finger to a man's whole arm. In Oahspe, thou hast hundreds of thousands of people. In other cities, tens of thousands and tens of thousands, so many that one man in his whole life could not number them. Yet as to my people, what are they? Not more than 10,000 altogether. Hear thou then my words. Not 1,000 of my people canst thou destroy, neither will my people raise a hand in self-defense. But thou wilt cast me into the lion's den, and I will be devoured. And this little hat without a brim will come out of the lion's den, and it will be a mighty power for thousands of years. It will be red with my blood, shed because I am faithful to the Great Spirit of my oath. And it will be restored to my people, and I shall be called the scarlet hat. And in the day that it is carried in the streets of Oahspe, thou shalt be slain by thy own people. The king laughed, saying, a prophecy often causeth foolish to carry it out. With that he gave the executioners a sign, and they pushed Habakkuk on the trap and cast him into the den, where there were 30 lions, and they fell upon him and devoured him. And his hat was colored red with blood. And some of the people who were superstitious in regard to the Ahins procured that hat and went about repeating the prophecy of Habakkuk. And the multitude were anxious for some pretext to justify themselves in destroying the tyrant. So presently the city was in riot, and the people fell upon the king and slew him, and also slew the learned men and women who were his counselors and subsidiaries. In the libraries of heaven it is recorded as followeth, to wit, because of the cruelty of Chimutz, king of Oahspe, on earth thousands and tens of thousands of people had been put to death, and because they died in anger and because of injustice, their souls went into torment in Hada. And they came and incensed the king to greater wickedness in order to have him slain. And it was so came to pass that Chimutz, chief king of Arabia, was slain by his own people, and the king's counselors were slain with him. And when their spirits were delivered from their mortal bodies, the Judas fell upon the king's spirit and the spirits of his counselors, and bore them off to a foul-smelling place in Hada, and cast him in them. And the Judas went in after them, beating them. Whereupon it became known in Hada that there was a newly started hell, and other spirits brought other victims there and cast them in. And the Judas went around about on the earth in Arabia, finding whomsoever they hated, bringing their spirits into hell, beating them and otherwise punishing them, until these 4 hells became the habitation of 60 millions of souls. Dante's Inferno, possibly. When Ichad had discovered the history of these hells, he searched and found the king's spirit and other counselors, but alas, they knew nothing, being in chaos, or more like one in troublesome nightmare, from which there was no awakening. But Ichad appointed physicians and nurses for them, and it was 3 days before they began to awake, but yet at the time of Fragapatti's visit, they were not sufficiently restored to know who they were, or if knowing one moment would forget in the next moment. Yet it was not many days after the deliverance of the hells that Ichad had the inhabitants removed to Hiram and the colonies thereof. Ichad had been informed by heralds that Fragapatti was coming, sent word to his lords, to his generals and captains and superintendents of schools and of factories and of hospitals, to come to Hiram and enjoy 3 days' recreation, bringing as many atmospherians as they could with him. So Fragapatti came in hosts of Ichad, and there was great rejoicing for the space of 3 days, during which time Fragapatti visited all the places laborers of each had, having records made thereof, to take him to Etheria at the end of dawn. Now, at the end of 3 days' recreation, the trumpet in the east called the council to labor and the host to order. Fragapatti sat in the midst of the throne, each had next to him, and then Horb and Yatanti, and then Thuli and Ispasia and Girthia, and others of less rank. A light immediately gathered above the throne, but this time deep scarlet with white border. Fragapatti said, "Thy voice of Jehovah be upon these people," whereupon the ensuers chanted a hymn, and after the voice of Jehovah spake out of the light, saying, "Whosoever raiseth my children, do I raise up my own hand, to whomsoever uttereth my words in wisdom and truth, do I speak from my judgment seat, because ye have come down from your exalted kingdoms in the upper heavens and raised up the Judras of this heavens. So come I from my all highest holy place to raise you up, as ye have prepared to find my word with mortals, so prepare I have in Hiram a heavenly place of delight. Was I not with the Ahin since the creation of man on earth, and wherein they have been faithful unto me, have I come in the great security. Now behold, the earth rose up against my chosen and sought to destroy them, but they faileth utterly. And when they cast my faithful servant into the lion's den, yet would he not violate his oath, even though he suffered death? And I outstretched forth my hand and took his hat, red with blood, out of the lion's den, and I gave power unto that hat. And into the far off country Japheth will I take the title of King of the Sun, bestow it upon Yangtze, and neither Arabian nor Parisi shall endure in holiness. Behold, I give you a new sign in addition to the triangle, and I shall be in the sign of Hiram, scarlet hat, from this time forth, signifying faith unto death. The voice ceased, and Fragapatti turned to the red light and stretched forth his hand and took thereof, saying, "Of thy scarlet, O Jehovah, give unto thy servant a Hiram as an emblem of this heaven." And he fashioned it into a hat without a brim and laid it on the throne. Present of swift messenger from without desired admittance before Fragapatti, and he was permitted to come. He said, "Greetings thee, O Fragapatti, son of Jehovah, and by the love of Each, god of Tishi, in Ode, great six am I sent before thee in Jehovah's name. Behold, one Habak is without, who was the wearer of Hiram." Fragapatti said, "Admit him and bid him approach the throne of God." The swift messenger retired and presently returned, bringing the Habak, faithful unto death. And he went up to the throne, and Fragapatti took the scarlet hat, saying, "Second only to Jehovah's crown, with Hiram cover I thy head in the name of the Creator." And he placed it on Habak's head, and the light of it was so great that hardly any but Etherians could look upon it. Then Habak said, "By this power, thy power, O Jehovah, will I go now and deliver unto everlasting light the king's soul of him who slew me. And I will restore the council also, for they will remember the scarlet hat, and it will be as an anchorage for their crazed minds to rest upon." So Habak saluted on the sign of the triangle and departed. And now was come the time of departure for Fragapatti and his hosts. So he instructed Gethia and bade him travel with him. Then Fragapatti instructed the council, which is after the manner of the instruction to the preceding councils, and then he descended to the foot of the throne, and the marshals caused the people to march before him. And Fragapatti created flowers and drapery and ornaments, and gave to every one something as they passed through. There were more than 100 million souls. And when they had all passed and resumed the places assigned them, Fragapatti sat down on the foot of the throne in ancient custom, and each had descended down to him, taking his hand, and he said unto him, "Arise, O chief, thou son of the Most High, and go thy way." Fragapatti rose up and departed, following by the gods and goddesses officiating. And they all went into the Avanza, departed, going to the kingdom of Gur-Akashi, Lord God over Helesti and her heaven. Very interesting there. When Gur-Akshi arrived at his division of the earth and heaven, the voice of Jehovah came to him, saying, My Lord and God, hear thou the voice of thy father. In thy division have no Ihuns left on the earth, and the place is like a field without a seed. The Ihuns had degenerated also by marrying the Druks, and thou art come to this, my farm, when it is grown up full of weeds and thistles. Look upon thy division, and thou shalt find no Lewis, no Ashars, in any avail of righteousness. Consider then what shall be done, that both mortals and spirits may be made to know me in my kingdoms. Gur-Akashi found the mortals of Helesti to be barbarians, many of them naked, at best clothed with skins of animals to keep them warm in winter. Some of them burrowed in the ground, and some lived in the houses made of bark and leaves and grass. And their food was mostly fish and flesh. Their cities were numerous but small, and every city spake a different language. Their weapons of war were clubs and spears and bows and arrows, but they neither iron nor copper, and used stone for cutting. She said, what incentive can I give such a people that will raise them up? Gurkashi then surveyed his heavens, but alas, there were no kingdoms, no organizations, no societies. As mortals lived and died, so continued their spirits around about in the same place, procuring subsistence in the same way, but spiritually, and often taking part in mortal wars and hunting, seeing and hearing through their mortal kin's eyes and ears. Gurkashi said, what incentive can I give such an angel that will raise them up? If I tell the mortals to till and soil, make clothes and flax and wool, my words will be interpreted as folly or implying hardships. If I tell the angels there are higher heavens, more beautiful, my words will be disbelieved. If I tell them that all groweth dependeth upon exercise and labor, they will decline to grow. Have I not seen rich men and rich women in other countries, whom I told that in order to rise they must learn to labor, but they heed me not. Jehovah said to Gurkashi, thou hast more than 1,000 million jujas in thy department. The mountains and valleys and forests are filled with them, roving about. As thou wouldest entrap birds by rich bait, so shall thou gather together all thou canst of these drujas. But as to mortals, thou shalt call famines into certain places, and thus drive them to observe the unseen causes of things. Gurkashi called together his hosts, millions and millions. He said unto them, form ye in sacred circles, hundreds of thousands ago, to the places I will point out, and invoke the higher heavens in Jehovah's name. Cast ye a famine here, and a blight in the animals of the forest. Into the water cast ye imberil, and the fish may die. Make mortals stop and consider. Let the Ashars go then, and find the most prophetic amongst mortals, and make them the prophecy of concerning the famines and the blight. Make their prophets objects of worship, then I can rule the inhabitants of the earth through the prophets. Concerning the angels, Gurkashi said, 5 heavenly places will I build for the Drujas. One shall be called Monk, one Akka, one Troy, one Biam, and one Helen. 5 lords shall be my lords to rule in my heavenly divisions. Kilopi, lord of Monk, Aitiris, lord of Akka, Phoebe, lordess of Troy, Lyri, lordess of Biom, and Koi, lord of Helen. Those shall be heavenly places in the mountains, pure in delight. And ye shall make them places of feasting and sporting for 1 whole year. Nothing that could be done to make them attractive for Jujas shall be left undone. Into 5 divisions, 500,000 each, shall my host be selected and appropriated, whose mission shall be to go around about throughout Helesti, bringing in drujas in 5 heavenly places. As for myself, I will build a plateau in these mountains, the Agwadika, with a council of 500,000. Let my lords stand aside, and I will apportion to each of them their attendees by the starlights that fall upon them shall be known and come forth. The Lord stood aside in different places. Gurkashi then cast stars until 3 million were selected. After the Gurkashi proceeded according to the voice of Jehovah, and he conducted his host to the places of Father command. After they were all placed, Gurkashi chose his own council and built a plateau and a throne of Jehovah on the Mount Agwadika. And when he considered the wisdom of the manner Jehovah had directed him to thus lay a foundation for such great work, he soliloquized, saying, O Jehovah, will these Judas ever understand the manner of thine armies? Will these mortals ever understand the proceedings of thy lords and gods? For 1 year the hosts entertained and fed, clothed the Drujas sumptuously. They won them over from the earth, won them to the kingdoms prepared for them, and the Gurkashi commanded the founding of schools, factories, and hospitals in heaven. And he appointed Ashars as sifts and began the resurrection through his lords. And by the 4th year he had colonized in his heaven nearly all the Drujas, giving them sufficient recreation to restrain them from returning to the earth. For a long time prior to Fragapatti's coming, he had it proclaimed, giving invitations to them to be present. This he communicated to Fragapatti through messengers. So Fragapatti, knowing the grade of the place, determined to come in gaudy colors with sufficient music, very loud, and for the manifestation of power, to match which Gurkashi had his people attire themselves in greatest gaudy colors, for in such manner do the unlearned judge of the glory and possibilities of high heaven. So it came to pass, Fragapatti's Avanza descended from above like a sea of fire, but decorated in thousands of ways with banners, flags, curtains, and such other ornaments as would convey the idea of greatness to the minds of the Assyrians. On the other hand, Gurkashi had decorated his palace and kingdom and throne, Agwadika, in most extravagant splendor, and he and his lords and his captains, generals, and his holy council were arrayed majestically. In addition to these things, Gurkashi had provided a feast, which was to succeed the ceremonies, and after the feast they were to be divers entertainment. But of these matters, who knoweth and thought of Jehovah? How hath he not provided ingenuities to bring the dark soul to understanding? Gurkashi said, to teach mortal teachers how to teach the barbarian, O Jehovah, to teach cold awe, to impart mirth, O Jehovah. Shall they build a prison and decorate the conviction in fine clothes, and bid him take his ease, beholding the virtuous working for him? O Jehovah, will they ever learn the power in resurrection, O Jehovah? Lastly, not of this chapter, it keeps going. Fragapatti and his host remained 30 days with Gurkashi, and great was the enjoyment of the people. And then Fragapatti departed, going to the kingdoms of Europa. First, goddess of barbarian division of the earth. The voice of Jehovah had been with her from the first, but there were but few Corporians in her division and only 600 million angels, mostly Jujas. Nevertheless, Jehovah said unto Europa, thou shalt find here a kingdom in my name, and it shall become mighty in heaven and earth. Europa said, what is the first best way, O Jehovah? Jehovah answered, saying, as for the Drujas, thou knowest. But as for the Corporians, behold, they have never copper nor iron, but use stone. Send therefore all thy hosts of Ashars, 500, who are very well skilled in the art of inspiring mortals, to Arabia, and thou shalt cast and cause 50 men to migrate into the lands, and the 50 men shall be such as skilled in mining and working copper and iron. And thy Ashars shall inspire them to go to the mountains and find the ore, and then to work the same, to make tools, and to make implements for hunting and fishing. So Europa sent angels to Arabia, and they inspired 50 men to go to Europa and find copper and iron and work it. And in the space of 4 years, behold, there had gone out in Arabia not less than 20,000 men, and the Ashars inspired them to marry with the Druks, half-breed Ihuans, and in this way a new people of higher light was born in Europa's division. In Zigel, Europa built her heavenly kingdom and found the city of Oitich. 500,000 angels were her holy council, and 5,000 captains, and of Ashars 2 million, partly Etherians and partly Atmospherians. Her heavenly kingdom was of the kind and manner of Gurkashes, and her administration in the same way. And in 4 years she had rescued nearly all the Jujas in the regions of Atmospheria. So when Fragapatti came to see her, she provided entertainments after the same manner as de Gurkashi, having all her hosts present. After this, Fragapatti visited Koini, whatever, and his heavenly kingdoms, and also his divisions. Next, Fragapatti visited Wing and his heavenly kingdoms and earth divisions. Next, he visited Oahspe and his places, and then Sofwa. With all these lords and gods, Fragapatti spent many days examining and recording all the labor done, and he spake before them all, so that his voice was heard by nearly all people in the lower heavens. And so great was the work accomplished by Fragapatti with one of these lords or gods, that were a history thereof written, it would require the whole lifetime of a man to read it. Nor is it possible with earth words to describe the beauty and glory of single one of these recreations in the travels. I'm going to leave that there. Chapter 42 is rather lengthy. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, share. And if you would like to support my work, all the links will be in the description below the video. And I want to thank you, sending each and every one of you protection, light, love, and shielding. Please be safe, be seen. Hopefully I don't have any more passings or doing crossing overs on my own accord. I've been trying to keep up with doing videos more frequently and more often, and then something sideswipes me and hell breaks loose. So just want to say rest in peace, my little Ethan. Co-host number 2, you're going to be missed. And I hope everybody has a great weekend. And for all those fathers out there, happy Father's Day. Bye, guys.